Afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon's chapel service. My name is Dan Beckett. It's my pleasure to be your minister for today. I want to welcome everyone in the world of live stream, family, friends, and classmates at remote internships. Welcome and thank you for being here. I also want to introduce our special musical guest today. This is award-winning singer-songwriter and Organic Records recording artist Aaron Burdett. And let us open together in prayer. Taking a deep breath, we bring our mind to this time and place. Hearts open with gratitude for being here together, for this beautiful day in this beautiful campus in the historic Fillmore Chapel. What a joy it is to be here, and we're all grateful for that. We open this afternoon to new learning, new understanding, to be touched at depth as we walk together our path with Spirit and our growth with Spirit. For this and so much more, we say thank you. Thank you, Spirit, and amen. I want to share first the dream that I've had. I had a recurring dream starting about when I was maybe 10 years old. And when I was 10, we lived in a suburb of New Orleans, and it's very, very hot there. We practically lived at the swimming pool in the summertime. We swam a lot. And around that time, I had a dream where I was swimming under the water, which we like to do, see how far we could get, could we make it from one end to the other. Swimming underwater, and in this dream, I began to panic because I need air. And for some reason, I don't know why, I'm not moving up to the surface. I'm just sort of sitting with this feeling of panic, and then way in the back of my head, a little idea comes, says, well, what would happen if you just tried to breathe right here? And so I did just a little bit at first, and nothing bad happened. And I breathed a little bit more, and nothing bad happened. And I realized I could take full breaths under the water, and it was like a miracle to me. This dream has recurred throughout my life, not often, but over years and years, and I always remember that. That breathing underwater that came up in that dream, I feel I have seen that unfold in my walk with Spirit, in my own development of consciousness, and I want to share today through story and song some of that with you and see if maybe some of it resonates for experiences that you've had. I know that all our life experiences support our growth in spirit. And I know that if we allow it, we can do the impossible. I want to begin at the beginning. So think back, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hands, or if you do this, that's the same thing as raising your hand. So I'll know it. I think back to the beginning. Think back maybe to your 20s. Right? And my first question is, who here is glad there was no such thing as Instagram and Facebook, and that everyone didn't have a movie-quality camera in their pocket at all times in our 20s? Because in our 20s, we can approach life with a tremendous amount of zeal, maybe not a lot of wisdom, and we can find that we're all over the place. And I know for me, and don't raise your hand, you can just think in your own mind. It was a time where I was looking outside myself for causes. You know, why are they making me upset? Why are they doing that to me? It's not my fault that such and such happened. See what they did, and pointing at things. There's a Bible verse that reminds me of this that I want to share. From 1 Corinthians. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. So let our path and our growth begin there. Aaron is going to play us a song. When I asked him about including this song, he said, "Sure, that's a lot like a church hymn." And I ask you to see what you think. A story about our youth. A lot like a church hymn, no. That dang magpie wasn't me. But fortunately, as I mentioned, all our life experiences can support our growth in spirit, including those where we're glad there was no such thing as Instagram. And we settle down and move forward and find new ways to engage life. And it had been my experience to find myself in a flow with life that seemed to be working really well. And in my last chapel service, I shared a lot of those stories, prosperity stories, about that time in my life. After I began to take more responsibility for what was going on and had goals and pursued them and enjoyed a lot of success during that time. I want to finish the Bible verse. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. I love this verse because it so well shows that shift to me. So now we're going to hear a song called Let It Flow that's about being in the flow and having things come together and just knowing you're headed in the right place.
In the place that we feel free.
Again, all of our life's experiences can support our growth in spirit. And if we allow it, we can do the impossible. That period of life, maybe you can think back and remember something in your life like that, where everything's flowing so easy and it seems so easy, but then again it wasn't. And I want to share a time in my life after that, when what worked so well in the past seemed to stop working. That flow that was so easy to find and get in and stay in was nowhere all of a sudden. I'll share with you that I used to drink, and I used to drink a lot, and I was really good at it. And there came a time when it was time to be done with that. And that became clear. Now, maybe you have or haven't had a similar experience, but maybe you've had something else that turned your world upside down. Maybe a loss of a close family member, a loss of a career, anything that sort of shakes everything that you thought you knew about life in the world and kicks you out of that flow that just seemed so natural, that was right there and all of a sudden is gone. Now, the upside of finding yourself in such a situation is that we are forced to really step back and look at what's important. What are the basics? What was working before that seems like it's not working now? Simple things like keeping your mind in the present, where you are now. We'll say, keeping my head where my feet are. Living life as it comes, not so much in the future, worrying about what might happen, not so much in the past, regretting what was done. But that basic principle that says life is what's happening right here, right now. And to focus on those things, the simplest things. And if you're like me, some of those simple things are such a revelation. Wow, of course, I'm going to do that all the time. But then I find all of a sudden, well, what happened to that? It seems simple. And it is simple, but it's not easy to stay in the moment, to live only in today. So it's the simplest things that we forget. And we have a song about that.
It's the simplest things I forget. It's the simplest things I forget.
For me, the very simplest thing that I work to remember is that at the end of the day, all I really need is simple awareness of what's happening in this moment. And that from that awareness can spring everything else that I may need. That simplest thing of all. Through my recovery, I encountered the concept of grace, which I had heard but didn't really think that much about, didn't have a lot of meaning for me. But it began to have a lot of meaning when I realized that it was a name that we gave the fact that in spirit we can always begin again. Every moment we have the option of making a decision. No matter what's happened in the past, in this now moment, I can choose differently. Choose a different path, one that serves me, knowing that God is forever providing us with support and ideas and ways forward. That if we're willing to be in this moment and rely on this thing we call grace, we'll realize that it's always, always there for us. There is an Eric Butterworth, Unity minister and author, Reverend Eric Butterworth, quote that I want to share. Grace is simply an explanation of a wonderful facet of the activity of God in you. It's not something to work for, to develop. It simply is.
The word for today is grace. The affirmation: I am healed and made whole through the loving grace of God. I am healed and made whole through the loving grace of God. Together. I am healed and made whole through the loving grace of God. God is love. And through God's love for me, I have been blessed with the greatest of all gifts, the gift of divine grace. God's love for me is changeless and eternal. There is nothing I can do that will make God love me less. The activity of grace, however, brings divine love to a more personal level of meaning in my life. For through grace, I am healed and made whole. Like divine love, grace is not something I have to work for or earn. Grace is always mine, just as divine love is always mine, as a beloved child of God. I am healed and made whole through the loving grace of God. As I accept God's love and grace into my life, I open the way for greater healing of mind, body, and relationships. Scriptures from Hebrews 4, verse 16. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. The word for the day is grace.
Thank you, Reverend Jenkins, for that inspired reading. And let us prepare now for a time of meditation on these truths. As we take a breath, let us settle into our chairs, knowing that we are fully supported and that we live in a field of grace. All we need to do is know and acknowledge it, and there it is. We don't have to earn it. We don't have to work for it. We simply allow our awareness of it to be. Truly one of the simplest things. We open our hearts fully now to experience this field of grace in which we live and move. This gift freely given is available as we are willing to be open to it. It has no end. It cannot run out. It is always, and it is everywhere. Let us take this truth with gratitude into the silence. Into the silence. And taking a deep breath together again. We allow this truth to take hold deeply in our being as we bring our attention back to the present moment in gratitude and thanks. Simply knowing grace is available to us can change our entire day. It can change our entire life. And for this grace and for this knowing and for the Spirit that is source of all, we say thank you. Thank you. And amen. It is through this grace, as I mentioned, that we know that no matter what has happened, we have a new and fresh opportunity. And truly, truly, all our life experiences support our growth in spirit, no matter what they were. Because grace allows that in our awareness. When we accept that truth, that is what, for me, allows me to get back up when I've fallen down. And when I look back at my life and have lost count of the times I've gotten back up, but as long as it's one more than the times that I've fallen down, I'm okay. There's a Japanese proverb I want to share that gets at this idea very well. Of course. And for those that don't read Japanese, that's okay. We have a transliteration for you. I hope that clears it all up. Okay, so we have the rest of the Japanese proverb. Here's what it means. Certainly words to live by. So truly all our life experiences, all of them, support our growth in spirit. Yes? And if we allow it, we can do the impossible. Or maybe what we thought was impossible. The thing formerly known as impossible, we can do. The beauty of this for me is that we retain all of the good that we've encountered along the way. That zeal that we had in youth. Yes, perhaps missing some wisdom. Yes, we're grateful there was no Instagram, but that zeal is available to us now. We can draw on that. Knowing that grace is available to us allows us to stand up again when we fall down. Having had to go through life being in the flow and then crashing and having to remember the basics, the simplest things that are so powerful, deceptively powerful. But when we remember them and rely on them, we find we can do the impossible. Thinking back on that dream, I'm grateful now to know that that dream has always been, though I wasn't aware of it, a blueprint of sorts for my life. And I'm amazed to see that pattern that showed up in that simple way. Swimming, having a good time, everything's fine, then everything's not fine because I can't breathe. I'm panicking. And then through simple trust and willingness to try something that showed up in my mind as a little spark of an idea, a divine idea, if you will, to find not only does it work, but I can rely on it completely. And from that moment forward, literally do the impossible in my dream and breathe underwater. So what I want to say more than anything today is if we're willing to be open to all of those things that we have experienced, if we're willing to be open to the support that Spirit has for us at every moment, we can breathe underwater, all of us, and we can do the impossible. That which, though, we always knew we could do.
Doing what I always knew I could do. Yeah.
Did not expect the swimming goggles. Thank you for that. Did you hear that? Doing what I always knew I could do. Doing what I always knew I could do. But maybe that voice was a quiet voice. Maybe there were louder voices saying other things. But if we can become still, if we can allow our life experiences to support our growth, then that voice that was quiet, the one that says, you can do this, becomes hearable, loud enough to hear and act on. And when we do that, certainly we can do the impossible. All our life experiences support our growth in spirit. Thinking back on that dream again, that's surprising how it's become a blueprint, helping me know that everything that I've been through, for better or for worse, I like to say the good, the bad, the ugly, and the other, all of it, has allowed me to be where I am today. And that's true for each of us. I know many of you, and I know many of you have not the same, but similar stories. There's something about being run through the ringer that wakes one up and makes unity look like the beautiful thing that it is. And we can see that so clearly. And I'm grateful for unity, discovering it fairly late in life. But the power of the principles and what they have done for me, I could not say enough about. Our movement gets right at that truth. Doing what I always knew I could do. Namaste.
Doing what I always knew I could do.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all for being here. One unity principle which you can practice now is, as we give, so shall we receive. And on the way out, you'll see an offering basket there. And we're grateful for your gifts. Thank you. I want to say thank you to everyone who helped put this service on. It only looks like two of us, but really there's a lot more going on than you might know. So thank you to everyone, especially Debris, my coordinator, and to Aaron Burdett, who's traveled from Saluda, North Carolina, to be here with us today. And next week, we have another wonderful service. Christine Boylan will be our minister. It's all about love. So please join us upstairs for refreshments, and let us close together with the prayer for protection. Everybody, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The presence of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you.